Coming up next, the latest updates as the search for answers continues in the Nancy Guthrie case.
Also, the declared withdrawal of a state surge in immigration enforcement.
And a former Steelers player speaking out on the reality of one of his old teammates here on RMU Live. Good afternoon, everybody. Today is February 13th.
Thank you for tuning into RMU Live. I'm Caden Hyde.
And I'm Nick Evans.
Before we get into the show, yesterday we had a special 21st birthday of none other than our very own Owen McLaren.
That's right. Happy birthday, Owen. Let's send it right over to you for our current weather update.
Thanks, guys. As you can see, the high today is going to be 35 with a low of 28. The humidity is a bit high for this time of year and a very low chance of any precipitation today. And as we go over to the hourly forecast, it is going to drop as we head into the nighttime hours, and it is going to get a lot more cloudy. And as we go into tomorrow's weather, it's going to be high of 50, low of 32, same humidity, same precipitation chances, and it's going to be a dramatic change in terms of temperatures as we go into next week. I'll have that later for you. I'll send it back over to you guys.
Thanks, Owen. After these cold temperatures we have had, this heat wave is starting to feel like Phil lied to us. Unfortunately, as we turn the page, we have another developing story regarding a fourth crash being added into the long string of accidents occurring on I-70 in the last week.
Interstate 70 saw more closures last night after yet another crash shut down 2 lanes in Washington County. In this instance, a sedan rear-ended a dump truck, with the former sustaining severe damage to the front bumper. Authorities say the 2 people involved in the crash were airlifted to a local hospital. This comes just days after another wrong-way crash in Westmoreland County caused a massive fire and shut down both eastbound lanes of I-70 for 11 hours. As for the Washington County crash, both lanes and exits have since been reopened.
A Greenfield man now faces charges for the first-degree murder of his sister, police announced on Wednesday. Aaron Charles Martin was found inside an apartment of the 700 block of Montclair Street with the body of his 26-year-old sister, Charlie Martin. On Wednesday, police received several welfare check requests over the weekend, as Aaron seemed like he was having a mental health crisis and was off of his medications. Investigators spoke with Charlie Martin's employer and found out that she had not been at work since February 3rd. Police received a search warrant for the apartment and found Aaron and Charlie's body. She had been shot 5 times and had been dead for several days. Police say Aaron confessed to the killing, and he is now being held in the Allegheny County Jail on charges of criminal homicide and abuse of a corpse. Well, it's day 13 in the search for Nancy Guthrie, and authorities are asking people who live within 2 miles of her home to check their surveillance camera videos. All the while, her children are paying tribute to their mother, praying she comes home, and Lee Waldman is live in Tuscan with the latest.
It's been nearly 2 weeks since Nancy Guthrie disappeared from her home. Despite the rainy conditions here in Tucson today, the FBI says that their investigation will continue. Meanwhile, they're releasing the very first description of the suspect they believe is behind this.
New details from the FBI about the person they're seeking in connection with the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. After using specialized equipment to analyze the scene, the FBI now believes that the individual is approximately 5'9" to 5'10" tall, with an average build, and gives us a better look at the type of backpack they say the suspect was carrying.
The height and the backpack are very good clues. And what the FBI will do is they'll start with the realm of the possible. How many of these backpacks were sold, when they were sold.
Also, a public plea from law enforcement to the community surrounding Nancy Guthrie's home. Check your surveillance cameras. Asking neighbors within a 2-mile radius for any video from January 1st to February 2nd to look for any vehicles or people that look out of place.
This is a targeted kidnapping. That person didn't just show up there that day and wonder, geez, will she be here? Will she be at home? They knew who she was. They knew her home.
Meanwhile, investigators have recovered several items of evidence, including gloves, the Pima County Sheriff's Department said Thursday afternoon.
They're going to check this thing every possible scientific way for anything that can bring them to a clue or a person.
A banner has been placed outside of KVOA, where Nancy's daughter Savannah Guthrie once worked, echoing the words of her children, "Bring her home."
The Pima County Sheriff Chris Nano said that the video released from that doorbell has generated some strong leads. They have a lot to go on, but he admits this investigation has been frustrating. In the Catalina foothills, I'm Lee Waldman.
Well, just an awful story that continues to unfold, but the rise in new evidence is a positive sign. Again, if anybody has any information regarding Nancy Guthrie, they are encouraged to make officials aware immediately. A nearly eight-year-old missing persons case turned murder has finally been put to bed as Thomas Stanko has been convicted of first-degree murder and reckless burning in connection with the death of his former girlfriend, Cassandra Gross. Gross, a Westmoreland County resident, went missing in April of 2018 and was declared dead 9 months later. Despite her body never being found, nearly 400 pieces of evidence tied Stanko to Gross's disappearance, including testimony from his fellow inmates who claimed that he bragged to them about killing her. When asked about the location of Gross's body, Stanko did not answer. He will be sentenced within 3 months, and he faces life in prison without possibility of parole.
An Oakmont man detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement last month has been returned home, but his future is still uncertain. Jose Flores, a 47-year-old Nicaraguan immigrant, was detained in front of his home while taking his daughter to school, but was released on Saturday morning under monitoring conditions. Flores and his wife currently have pending asylum applications and valid work permits. His employer and other community members celebrated his release as well as criticized the arrest. This comes as advocates are calling for reforms to ICE. Flores has a court hearing scheduled for February 19th to determine the next steps in this ongoing situation. Moving downtown, the local nonprofit Casa San Jose has announced it will be operating virtually for the time being due to increased ICE presence in the region. Casa San Jose is an organization committed to aiding Latino immigrants through case management, mental health services, continuing education, and aid for pregnant women, offering these services and more for free. They have been incredibly vocal about the ICE crackdowns, taking part in several demonstrations since President Trump was sworn in, and immigrant organizations have become a focal point of ICE activity. With agents in Minneapolis following workers of organizations similar to Casa San Jose home after work. Executive Director of Casa San Jose, Monica Ruiz, told Trib Live, quote, "You can't predict what is going to happen with this administration. I do need to think about the safety of my staff," end quote. Casa San Jose hopes to return to in-person work as soon as they can do so safely.
A controversial chapter in American history is coming to an end as President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, announced that ICE will cease its operations in Minnesota.
I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude. A significant drawdown has already been underway this week and will continue through the next week.
A significant drawdown has already been underway this week and will continue through the next week. ICE's Operation Metro Surge, as it was called, resulted in the arrest of 4,000 illegal immigrants, according to Homan, but caused uproar due to the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, 2 American citizens. Protests in the area led to the arrests of thousands, including journalist Don Lemon, as well as the closure of small businesses. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said at a news conference following the decision that he was, quote, cautiously optimistic about the withdrawal, as well as saying the operation caused, quote, deep generational trauma in the region. Well, Congress leaders in the White House are racing to avoid a shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security as the funding is set to expire this weekend. Democrats have delayed this agreement by demanding major restrictions to ICE following the recent fatal shootings involving federal agents. Republicans have rejected most of the Democrats' demands, arguing that they would endanger officers and weaken enforcement. The party has said that they are open to some of the Democrats' demands, such as more training and body cameras. Negotiations are currently ongoing, but both sides have very firm lines, and short-term funding extensions remain uncertain.
Earlier this week, the Diocese of Pittsburgh announced the closure of 7 of 8 churches in its St. Joseph the Worker parish. Good Shepherd in Braddock, Sacred Heart in Braddock Hills, Madonna del Castello and St. Anselm in Swissvale, St. Coleman in Turtle Creek, St. John Fisher in Churchill, and St. Jude the Apostle in Wilmerding will close their doors forever next month, as Bishop Mark Eckman outlined in a letter written to the parishioners. The letter cites declining mass attendance and financial restraints as reasons for the closure.
After this, growing repercussions surrounding the Epstein files and who is facing the current backlash.
Also, how kids can learn to love themselves with growing self-esteem.
And later, which most memorable artist is selling their music catalog. After this.
30.
Let's see. Women's basketball.
Found my heart out there in the open. Trees make you feel smaller. Can't help but get lost again. If I need a break, know where I'm going. Where the water's flowing, I'd rather be floating. If it's something I can count on to be free.
Feel the beat of nature at a park or forest near you. Find a forest and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org.
Welcome back to RMU Live.
Lawmakers say that newly revealed evidence in the Justice Department's files on Jeffrey Epstein contained disturbing revelations and raised new questions about those involved. After reviewing unredacted documents, Representatives Jamie Raskin, Ro Khanna, and Thomas Massie said the files reference victims as young as 9 years old and mentions at least 6 men whose names remain redacted despite being potentially involved in the Epstein trafficking network. All of these men are deemed to be prominent figures, with one of them being a senior official in a foreign government, according to Massie.
That's right, Nick, and Representative Massie warned that he could reveal the names of those individuals on the House floor, where lawmakers are protected by congressional privilege. Lawmakers are still arguing that the DOJ is withholding millions of documents and failing to fully comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act, despite over 3 million documents being released last week. Critics also say that excessive redactions may be shielding powerful people from accountability. This controversy is continuing to fuel frustrations over the lack of full disclosure for all Epstein-related records. The Justice Department says it is working in good faith to process the mass amount of documents while protecting the victims.
Well, Attorney General Pam Bondi clashed with Democrats during a heated House Judiciary Committee hearing over the Justice Department's handling of those Epstein files. Bondi came to the defense of President Donald Trump and accused Democrats of politicizing the issue. Let's hear what Representative Jeremy Raskin had to say about Bondi.
Whether it's Epstein's human trafficking ring or the homicidal governmental violence against citizens in Minneapolis, as Attorney General, you're siding with the perpetrators and you're ignoring the victims. That will be your legacy unless you act quickly to change course. You're running a massive Epstein cover-up right out of the Department of Justice.
Well, lawmakers like Raskins criticized Bondi for not only refusing to answer questions, but also for releasing files that expose sensitive information about victims. Bondi insists that the Justice Department is focused on reducing crime and restoring its core mission, despite the heat about the Epstein files.
New legislation regarding voting identification passed the House on Wednesday, but is expected to face backlash from the Senate. The bill, known as the Save America Act, would require Americans to prove they are citizens when registering to vote, mostly through a valid U.S. passport or birth certificate. It would also require a valid photo identification before voters can cast a ballot, which some states already demand. Let's hear what Mike Johnson, the Speaker for the House of Representatives, had to say regarding the bill.
By voting for the Save America Act, House Republicans did exactly what the American people sent us here to do. It's promises made, promises kept. Ensuring the integrity of elections is an essential issue. It's essential to maintaining our constitutional republic, and everybody in this country seems to understand and agree to that. The second part of it, what we added tonight and what is part of the Save America Act is the second piece, the very common sense requirement that you have a photo ID if you're going to vote.
Pennsylvania Representative Scott Perry voted to approve the bill, but the Secretary of the Commonwealth, Al Schmidt, expressed how this will present an enormous administrative burden with the midterms creeping closer.
The United States announced today that it is sending its largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, to the Middle East. The aircraft joins the USS Abraham Lincoln, already stationed in the region amid rising tensions with Iran. This move comes after President Donald Trump pushes Iran to reach a nuclear agreement, and he warns that not complying would be, quote, very traumatic. Negotiations have recently stalled as regional conflict allies warn any conflict could spiral into a broader war. U.S. military presence in the region continues to expand, while citizens in Iran mourn those killed in recent nationwide protests.
According to South Korea's intelligence industry, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has selected his teenage daughter Kim Ju-ae as his successor. The 13-year-old is no stranger to the spotlight, as she has been seen at major military and political events alongside her father. This is a rare move, as North Korea's leadership tradition has stayed strictly male-dominated. Questions are also being asked why Kim Jong-un is naming his young daughter as heir while he is still in power and relatively young. This signal of Kim Ju-ae's rising status in North Korea's government leads analysts to watch closely for her role in an upcoming party congress. Kim Ju-ae also had a strange reveal to existence when former NBA star Dennis Rodman told the Guardian newspaper that he held baby Ju-ae during a trip to North Korea.
The Trump administration continues to place Democratic states at a disadvantage, as this week an anonymous Office of Management and Budget official revealed that the agency has instructed the Department of Transportation and the Center for Food Disease Control and Prevention to cancel more than $1.5 billion in federal grants to Illinois, California, Minnesota, and Colorado. These grants would have funded the installation of electric car chargers, translating Illinois' driver's license to Spanish, and a study of long-term effects of social isolation on LGBTQ+ adults. Representatives of the states have said that they are aware of the cuts, with Jillian Kaler, a spokesperson for Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, calling them, quote, wrong and often illegal. Similar cuts have been halted by the judicial system in the past, and it remains to be seen if these grant terminations will hold up in court.
A South Greensburg fire chief is facing charges after state police say he stole thousands of dollars from his own department. The man, identified as Matthew White, is being charged with theft by unlawful taking, and court records show these alleged thefts total to at least $178,000 since 2023. Investigators say White used the department's bank account to make purchases labeled as donations, then later transferred the money into a citizen's bank account linked to him. White was described as being long respected by the community, and this came as a surprise to many local citizens in the area. A community in Montgomery County is reeling this week after Burrell High School boys basketball coach Michael Fantuzzo was arrested for stealing nearly $250,000. The victim of the theft is Pennsylvania Occupational Therapy Association, a nonprofit of which Fantuzzo is the former treasurer. Detectives say the theft happened over a 4-year period from May 2021 to September 2025, and that Fantuzzo used the money to pay for trips to Disney World, a $10,000 hot tub, a country club membership, limousine services, and to pay off credit card debt. Fantuzzo has been relieved of his duties as head coach, and Burrell will take on Bell Vernon tonight in the state playoffs without him.
Well, it's a holiday that's often associated with romance, but Valentine's Day can celebrate love in all forms, even love for oneself. Experts say that starts with developing good self-esteem, and for children and teens, it's something that has to be built up over time.
In today's Health Minute, Mandy Gaither explains how to help children learn to love themselves.
No matter your age, self-love isn't always easy. And for children who are still learning about the world and their place in it, it can be especially hard.
Self-esteem is not something kids are just born with. It is something that we can build in them.
Dr. Ariana Howitt with Nationwide Children's Hospital says factors like bullying, lack of choices, adults providing too much help, and comparisons can cause kids to be hard on themselves.
Adults have a big role to play in building kids' self-esteem from the moment they're born, from the moment they're very little to their teenage years.
To foster self-love in children, Howitt says parents can teach them to talk kindly to themselves, talk them through negative thoughts, and praise them when you notice they've done something well. She says to also model that.
Give them lots of love yourself so that they learn to do it back too.
Next, Howitt says to build independence in children by giving them chores or tasks at home, which can help them see they can do hard things. And monitor their connection to others. Friendships can impact how a child feels about themselves. For older children, so can social media. Howitt says to limit exposure and talk to them about it.
What you're seeing on social media is not real. That's just the highlights. You're not seeing what that other child may be struggling with.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Dr. Howitt says having low self-esteem can lead to mental health issues like anxiety and depression. The Kids Mental Health Foundation says if your child speaks negatively about themselves most days, can't follow their usual routine, lose interest in things, isolate themselves, or has thoughts of self-harm or suicide, seek professional help immediately.
Yes, you can also receive help through the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Just call, text, or chat the number 988, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Here on RMU-TV, we do more than bring you the latest news on Fridays at 4 p.m.
Yes, during the spring semester, we have RMU Focus on Mondays at 3 p.m., Sports Talk in the Berg at 5:15 p.m. on Wednesdays, and Colonial Sports Center at 9:30 p.m. every Thursday night. Make sure to tune in right here on RMU-TV.
Stay tuned for more news on a former Steelers player revealing the truth about his prior quarterback.
Also, men's basketball celebrating last night's game as they get geared up for the next.
And women's hockey getting ready for a big showdown after their recent sweeping win here on RMU Live.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Today, we face an unprecedented crisis. Tens of millions of refugees have been forced from their homes. But you can make a difference. Turn disruption and despair to hope and opportunity. Even small amounts make a big difference. Provide shelter, support, or jobs in your community. The more we understand, the greater sense of belonging we create. Act now. Visit supportcrisisrelief.org.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Welcome back to RMU Live, and before we get into our normal sports segment of today, Caden is going to tell us about what is currently going on with the Steelers.
That I am, Nick. As this week, former Steelers linebacker Joey Porter heavily criticized legendary former quarterback Ben Roethlisberger on Cam Hayward's podcast. When Roethlisberger's recent comments on the state of the Steelers came up, Joey Porter said, quote, "Ben broke the brotherhood. The stuff that he would do that we don't talk about is crazy. The stuff he did was foul of all foul. He's just not a good teammate. Anybody in the Steelers building knows that," end quote. Porter also mentioned the way a young Roethlisberger was very dismissive of teammates and fans, even went as far back as to say that Ben was a monster.
Well, that is definitely a statement that will get some Steelers fans' heads turning. But it is time now for our sports segment with our very own Joey Dramasic, who gives us the latest updates surrounding everything sports. Joey, the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm so happy to be back with you all to give the sports report of the week. We have a lot to get into, recap and a preview ahead of Valentine's Day, so I would love to get started. Let's start off with the team on the diamond, the reigning Horizon League champions, the RMU softball team. The team traveled down to Rock Hill, South Carolina to take part in the Winthrop Invitational. They took on Kent State this morning and are currently wrapping up their second game of the day versus the Morgan College. The Colonials rematch versus Lemoyne tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Let's head back inside on the hardwood as the men's basketball team traveled to Cleveland last night and in a dominant fashion took down the Vikings 85-68 in a game where the Colonials shot 45% from three. The Colonials now jump into the fourth in the Horizon League and will look for conference win number 10 versus Oakland on Sunday in Moon Township. Over to the women's team, who took part in two more overtime matchups in this past week and split the two games. The Colonials beat Milwaukee in overtime last Saturday, but fell to Youngstown State Wednesday evening after the Penguins hit a buzzer-beating shot to send the game to overtime. The ladies will look to bounce back tomorrow in a date with Cleveland State at home. Tip-off is set for 2 p.m. Heading over to the ice with the women's hockey team, who are coming off of a sweep versus Delaware last weekend. The Colonials are going to close out their regular season versus Lindenwood, the team that is currently 3 points ahead of them in the AHA standings. Tonight is a teddy bear toss, so if you are going to be there, be ready to toss out those bears. Puck drops at 7 p.m. tonight and at 1 p.m. tomorrow. Over to the men's hockey team, who is coming off a sweep themselves with a pair of wins over Canisius. The team is currently 9-16-3 this season and are fighting to obtain the 4th seed in the AHA. The men look on to take on Niagara in New York tonight at 6 p.m. and are back at Clearview Arena tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Let's finish things off on the turf with men's lacrosse, who are currently 0-2 this season with losses to Johns Hopkins and Richmond. The Colonials will look to get into the win column today with their game almost wrapping up versus Bucknell at Joe Walton Stadium. And the women's lacrosse team, who opened up their season with a dramatic win in overtime versus George Mason. The win over the Patriots was led by Mia Berthoff, who scored 5 goals and ended with a Julia Foley overtime goal to start the Colonial season off with a win. Their game today versus Canisius just got underway, and they were also playing at Joe Walton Stadium today before hosting crosstown rival Duquesne. Well, that's all I have for you today. Have a great Valentine's Day and a great week, and come back for your weekly sports report. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Joey. And we have also just received word that the softball team did win their game today. As winter sports wind down and spring sports begin again, it is going to be an exciting end for these teams. Can't wait to hear about it all about it next week with Joey Dramasic.
Well, still ahead, this upcoming week's weather forecast. Back over with Owen.
Plus, Britney Spears' latest update that's got everyone wondering what's next.
And the recent bill signed into law to help students after this break.
When I first saw a turtle, my heart was full. Now I'm anything but lonely.
We had this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure love.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Or maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all. If I could go back, I would. But I can't.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly and put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back to RMU Live.
The weather here in Pittsburgh is known to be a bit bipolar this time of year. Just this past week it was 50 degrees, now it's back down to what we expect February to feel like. Is that something that will continue into this week? Here's Owen McLaren with this week's forecast.
Thanks, guys. As you can see, here's the 5-day forecast. On Sunday, it is going to be very cloudy, but as you can see throughout the week, it does get better, except on Wednesday where there is a good chance of rain leading into Thursday as well. But all of the temperatures are going to be in the high 40s and low 50s, but don't get used to that, as soon it might drop down. I'll send it back over to you guys.
Well, we're definitely excited about the heat coming our way to melt this snow, especially after the prolonged spell of frigid temperatures.
Moving over to Britney Spears has not produced new music in a decade, but she has made news headlines this week in the music world for selling the rights to her entire music catalog to publisher Primary Wave. The gossip site said this is a, quote, landmark deal, but the exact amount Britney Spears earned was not disclosed. Other major artists such as Bruce Springsteen, Justin Bieber, and Sting inked deals in the hundreds of millions of dollars. 2 years ago, it was rumored that Britney Spears would return to more music and work on a new album, but she denied that on Instagram by saying, quote, "I will never return to the music industry," end quote. Spears released her last studio album, Glory, in 2016.
Well, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro signed a new bill into law on Wednesday requiring cursive to be taught to children in schools. Representative Dane Wastro announced the bill in 2024, citing the cognitive, developmental, and practical benefits of cursive writing. He also cited the ability for students to read and comprehend the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and Bill of Rights, as well as reasoning as well. The bill allows for students to gain, quote, a solid grasp of cursive skills each year according to grade level. The law will take effect in 60 days. Well, I used to learn cursive in school, and I'm glad that it's coming back.
Yeah, as someone who comes from out of state, back in my home state of West Virginia, they do still have that mandate in place. I can't say my signature does look pretty good.
I know. I mean, if you have a bad signature, how are you going to write those checks? I know you got so much money.
Oh, yes, of course. I know you do as well. We make a lot of money here at RMU Live.
Well, thank you for tuning in today for RMU Live. It was a great show, and we will see you next week.